trust Ferguson Roof Systems to replace your roof, we go the extra mile to protect your home and property. On every job, we deploy durable netting to protect your home's exterior and landscaping. It's just one more reason why you should call Ferguson Roof Systems today.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist Tuttle. Well, about 10 minutes later than I wanted to go on. Had a phone call I had to deal with, but we are at the helm here. I see you, June, with some stars. Start me off on Facebook. Same thing for Robert and Cindy, Kathy and Chris. Let's get a stars party going, says Facebook. Activate. All right, so hey, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you guys coming here. Appreciate all the new faces, the new follows. A lot of you guys around North Texas and Dallas-Fort Worth area. So usually on big events, I'll cover you guys down there in North Texas. That includes either tornadoes or kind of like the aforementioned ice storm, sleet storm, freezing rain, whatever you want to call it, down there as well. Anything that's kind of a big deal. Same thing kind of east toward Arkansas and Kansas and that kind of deal. So trying to cover just mostly Oklahoma and then the surrounding states during big events. So that's what I do here in my spare time at AT's Weather. So I'm a meteorologist. If you don't know, I'm an actual real meteorologist. I'm not one of the guys you follow on the internet that just pretends to be and just scams you. actually teach you some science. We actually learn about the weather as I do the forecast. We do it on the fly sometimes, so it might take a little longer, but you get some at least enjoyment out of it. You can see kind of the curtain. You can see what's behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz feature out there. All right, tell you what, you guys on Facebook, by the way, I'm going to send this link like I always do. If you're having trouble getting notified when I go live, click it quickly. It'll scroll through fast in the comments section, and you can opt in to get a direct message from me. You guys on Rumble, thanks for checking in. YouTube also, thanks for checking in. I see you guys in the house as usual. Always good to see the crew. And then on Twitter as well. Earlier today I had some issues with Cox Cable, but I'm proud to report that line guys were out there working on it all afternoon, and they did find some more problems, and they fixed those problems, and they don't know if that was all the problems, so we're going to take another look tomorrow just to be sure. But needless to say, we're getting even closer to having solid, reliable internet. So AT's Weather can continue. All right, let's take a look outside. You know what? There's been some starlight out there. You don't see it now. I mean, I'm having a squint, but I swear I saw some stars there in the background a little bit as we had some sunshine peeking through before the end of the day. Temperature here at my house is 20.5 degrees on my Tempest weather station. We've had a wind that's gone calm out there, and that is because that the high pressure system that has moved in has basically centered itself near central and northeastern Oklahoma. So when that happens, the winds get really light. I'll show you what that looks like. You know what? Let's go ahead and show what that looks like now, and then I'll do the other two things I want to do. Yeah, let's do that. So let's do this here. Okay, so here's your map. That's over Oklahoma itself. The red numbers on the screen are the actual temperatures, and the green numbers are the dew point values. So again, we've got that Arctic air that's in place around our region, and that really dries things out in the lowest levels. And so that does a couple of things. It can kind of save you from getting too much in the way of heavy precipitation, but it can also be a lower number for the temperature to fall to when you're dealing with wet bulb situations. And the numbers out here are much more on the moist side. In other words, the temperature and the dew point aren't that far from one another, so that's why you can have more accumulating freezing rain in this environment. So like I mentioned earlier around lunchtime today, if you're just kind of rule of thumb, at least in this situation, the mid-teens, you would look at this area for the maximum amount of accumulation when it comes to freezing rain, whereas here you get a lot of evaporation that does happen just because the dew point values are so low compared to the actual temperatures. So that's kind of just one of the little things that we'll look at for tonight in the data field. Also, if you notice, the winds here in this area have gone completely calm. In other words, there's no barbs associated with them, right? So basically, this is where the area of high pressure is. So it's the Arctic air, as all that it's going to be able to do is built in. There's nothing more behind it. All is said and done. The upper level low pressure system is still out here across Baja. And out ahead of it, we are pumping in all that Pacific moisture running right up through Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Memphis, onward. And that has, of course, been causing all the inclement weather we continue to see. So we still have this whole axis point here to come through. And that's going to be a 36-hour event. I mean, it's going to be a long time, all the way up through Thursday morning. So it's a lot of precipitation that is going to be working its way through. All right, so let's do some science. Let's do some meteorology. We look at the observed balloon sounding in Fort Worth, And what we see here, and I've shown you this before, this is the vertical line in the atmosphere of freezing. So the temperature is red, the dew point, in other words, the moisture is green. When these lines meet, the atmosphere is saturated. All right, that's total cloud cover, precipitation, etc. Now, when this red line is to the right of this yellow line, it means it's above freezing. When it's to the left, it's below freezing. So all this air is below freezing. It melts. All the precipitation melts here and then tries to refreeze back on contact here. Now, how long it takes to refreeze, and if it comes down in the form of sleet or freezing rain, it all depends on a little bit of the criteria. And so we're going to do some little fun stuff here before I get to the forecast. This is kind of neat stuff here. You don't get this anywhere else. All right, so let's take a look. This is the platform I was talking about here that I just showed you. This is where we have that vertical line that goes in the atmosphere. To the right of it is the warm layer. Left is cool. And you can see how the precipitation falls. It starts off as snow, melts into rain, and then refreezes into freezing rain. When you get some of that sleet, what happens between this panel here and this panel here is this warm layer is smaller and the depth of this is thicker. Another way to visualize this, I like this one too, is, it actually has some words on it. So freezing rain, the deeper you have a warm layer, it's thicker, all right? And down here in the cold layer, it's about the same in both of these examples. The main difference they show is a shallow warm layer versus a deeper warm layer. And if you use the top-down forecasting method, we can use some tricks with that. So what we're going to focus on here for tonight, on into tomorrow, is we're going to see sleet again. We're going to see some actual just pure liquid freezing rain. Well, in the profile of the atmosphere, you have to have a temperature less than 3 degrees Celsius in that warm nose that I showed you. Remember the warm color? Right here to the right of the 0 degree Celsius line. So thus we look down the sounding tonight here for Dallas-Fort Worth. Now, this was warmer than 3 degrees. And the surface, it has to be about 750 meters. So about 2,500 feet. It has to be about -6 degrees. So what's going to happen is, now let's take a look at what it takes for freezing rain. And this is why this is important, because in freezing rain, your warm layer is greater than 3 degrees Celsius, and your 6 degrees, again, is going to fall probably less than, for the most part, this 750 meter level. So we go back to our forecast, our balloon sounding in Fort Worth. We're actually at +9 degrees, so we're plenty warm for freezing rain. And the thickness right here, where we have the coldest temperature, which is about -8 in this section here, it's right below that 750 meter mark. In other words, this is not going to be thick enough to get it back over to sleet. So according to this sounding from tonight, anything that comes in tonight and tomorrow should be all freezing rain for you guys in Dallas-Fort Worth. Now here in Oklahoma City, we're a little different. We have a much thicker profile here for sleet and a little thinner profile that's to create the freezing rain. So here in Oklahoma, we should see initially some sleet and then go to freezing rain. So that's kind of how that should plan out, just looking at current observations, top-down forecasting methods on how the atmosphere should evolve. All right, so let's take a look at that upper level energy. So there's the upper level low out across Baja. Look at all that colors you see ejecting across Texas and Oklahoma. That's all the upper level energy coming through for Wednesday into Thursday. And the upper level low skirts across the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You might even get a wet snow back behind this little system for Dallas and North Texas and southern Oklahoma. We'll show you that in a second. Then that'll move on by, and then we'll kind of get in a quiet pattern for a little bit. There's some other indications, maybe some more storms on the horizon, but honestly, I had zero time to deal with that. I'm too focused on what's coming up for the next 48 hours. So here's a look at, we can time the big waves of instability. So here's the first one for Wednesday morning, and it comes in across central and heads into northern Texas. So that's when your first wave is going to move in. There's additional energy that kind of keeps piling in during the day. There's midday into afternoon on Wednesday. It does cross over the Red River into Oklahoma. So yes, we'll see some of that into Oklahoma as well. But the heaviest stuff, as you can see, is North Texas along the Red River. Again, this is the pure lift in the atmosphere. This is what squeezes out all that nasty stuff. And there's the evening hours. And you see how that moves into Arkansas. More of it's in Texas. So it just keeps on coming. It's an endless train. As we head into Thursday morning, it's finally kind of coming to an end here across most of Oklahoma. There's still some pockets, but there's still some ongoing down here into Texas, and that's because the upper level low does create a little bit of lift of itself for Thursday morning here, moving through Dallas-Fort Worth, the Red River, southern Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma. So yes, we're going to have a little bit of rain, like liquid rain, not freezing rain this time around, but also some cold on the core of it, some snow on the back end. it might actually be some measurable snow. We're talking about maybe a couple inches for some of you guys in that zone from northern Texas into southern Oklahoma. I'll show you that here in just a second. But meanwhile, that activity finally moves off to the east. So what happens is, let's take a look at the thickness of the Arctic air. This is at 925 millibar levels, just a few hundred feet off the ground or so. And you can see anything, best way to look at it, the freezing line is like in this zone here. So that's why that icing event was as far south as southern Arkansas, through Tyler, into Bryan, almost into Bryan College Station. Almost made it into Waco, Austin, near San Antonio. So that's why the cold air was deep enough in that area. Because of this thickness of this Arctic air mass. Now, what happens as we go through time, watch we have to head into Wednesday into the afternoon. So Wednesday afternoon, the Arctic front has, let's just say, moderated on the fringe. So now it's kind of in this position here. So that still means everything along this line from central Arkansas, along this red line to the west, is either going to be freezing rain, and again, in some cases, if it's thick enough, some sleet. As we head into Wednesday night into Thursday, though, look what happens. Some dramatic changes come up at midnight. We get a lot more moderation in this area, and it splits Dallas-Fort Worth in half, and then kind of jots west of 35. This may mean, and this is going to be, boy, a hard call, but it may mean you guys in Dallas, by midnight, you get above freezing, whereas Fort Worth stays below freezing, and Fort Worth gets hit harder for the next few hours after that than Dallas does. So ice accumulations will be higher in Tarrant County versus Dallas County, and the same thing goes for anywhere on either side of this line. But now this is just a generic ballpark. We're going to look at some other data to see and fine-tune that for you. But anyways, we go from that point into Thursday morning. It doesn't really move a whole lot overnight, kind of snakes around here in North Texas. Oklahoma, though, stays pretty much frozen in the morning hours, and that continues through midday. This is a new development in tonight's data. It does not want to let go of all the cold air, and that's why we might have some lingering freezing drizzle in southern Oklahoma, even in the late morning hours on Thursday, and then yes, some of that cold enough for some of that snow that moves in as the system finally kind of moves through late Thursday afternoon. All right, now if we look at the 850 millibar temperature, this is kind of where we're going to find out where the line is for the freezing rain, where you get a lot less sleet and a lot more freezing rain. So this is the freezing line for that point. So if you're south of this line, freezing rain and a little bit of sleet. Remember, our actual depth of the cold air is kind of something like this, right? So between those is where you have your freezing rain roughly. Along this red line is where you start to get a little sleet mixed in, and of course deeper into the red line back behind it, if of course you have precipitation falling at the time. As we head on into the period ahead through, we'll just go into Wednesday morning, you can see how there is some retreating of that colder air and retreating and in replacement of the warmer air. So now we have the warmer air now moving back into this zone. So we are shoving the freezing rain line back into central and eastern Oklahoma and out into west Texas. Again, that means any precipitation that falls in this channel is going to be in the form of freezing rain versus sleet. All right, so that's the trend that's going to continue. I can continue this all the way into, let's just go to Thursday. There are some indications on Wednesday, by the way, late Wednesday, that might have some pockets of some of this cold air that spills in from the west that may keep some of this out here as sleet and not allow it to go freezing rain. So just kind of keep that in mind. It might be kind of a harder cutoff in the sand. I'm thinking I-44 corridor. You're west of I-44, out in western Oklahoma, it's going to be sleet, maybe some snow mixed in. If you're along that boundary points east, that's when you have the freezing rain through the late afternoon, evening as the system works through. And the temperatures never get cold enough to keep that all sleet after that. It's just for that short window of time. All right, so now let's look at the actual air temperatures and we'll see how things go. What you will see on the trend is this area out here moderate once you get east of I-35 and down here once you get south of Little Rock as we head throughout the period. So let's start this from the beginning. All right, so we'll go through tonight. So here is tomorrow morning on Wednesday. We're still into the 20s here in Oklahoma. I mean, it's just going to be cold and really it's below freezing everywhere to start out Wednesday. And then as we head into the afternoon, models still try to warm us up here into the brunt of Oklahoma, or the body of Oklahoma through the afternoon to where just a couple of degrees above freezing. It's doable, but man, it's going to be close. Otherwise, I'm not so sure about the getting above freezing out here in parts of Arkansas either. Now, when we get dark and we lose the sun, we're back below freezing again, and then any precipitation again will still cause some icy conditions. And this continues overnight, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So by Thursday morning, this is the interesting part. Like we mentioned, remember how the retreating line that we have here? Dallas-Fort Worth, according to some of the high-resolution data, shows 34 degrees in Dallas and 33 in Tarrant County. So what that means is you should have conditions improve. So any icing you get for tomorrow into tomorrow night up through about midnight, then things might start to improve from east to west as temperatures moderate little by little, and they climb just by a tenth of a degree or half a degree at a time, to where by the time you get up Thursday morning, it's a good chance along I-35 from Denton to Dallas, etc., all that ice you've accumulated has all started melting already. Off the bridges, off the trees, off the power lines. So any power outage, of course, that has started up to that point or led to that point has been done. You can't take that back. But at least that weight will be off the lines, and that would maybe help any future power outage issues from that, just because of the way temperatures are going to go. So that's the best news I have for you in this otherwise not so good news when it comes to an ice storm. Okay, let's go to the timing of how things will go. So here's a look at the precipitation that comes in late tonight into tomorrow morning. Now, by the way, let me just go ahead and show you. Down here in Texas, there still already is light precipitation. Some of this isn't making its way to the ground. Others is, but it's going to be in the form of some spotty light freezing drizzles, some spotty light showers that freeze on contact in this area here in Texas. And again, this goes all the way from the hill country out to western parts of Texas. I mean, it's cold out there. Look at Austin. They're at 30 degrees. San Antonio is right at 32. Like Bryan College Station is 34, up to the 20s, north and east from there. And this activity actually continues all the way from Little Rock through Memphis. I mean, look out here across the eastern part of the country in the Midwest. I mean, there's still lots of signs here for some precipitation with temperatures at or below freezing. And I'll tell you this was not forecasted well by local forecast offices. They did not have the proper advisories in effect for a lot of this. So this took a lot of people by surprise. I don't understand what happened to the weather community this entire event. It's been seen for 6 days coming. I can't answer on behalf of anybody else other than me. I don't know why people didn't take it more seriously. Maybe they just didn't believe it, you know. I don't know what it is about ice storms. They have a hard time thinking that's actually going to happen. But if you do look here at the Dallas-Fort Worth area zoomed in, you can see some spotty areas, a little bit of sleet, freezing rain, still trying to get mixed in on the light stuff, but it trickles all the way back down southwest. It's still a little bit to the north and east. All right, so back to the maps and the forecast here. So that said, that's what's happening for tonight. The model will pick up the heavier stuff. It won't necessarily get the lighter stuff. They don't always do that great in this environment. By daybreak, it does have the heavy stuff moving through Dallas-Fort Worth, stretching into southern Arkansas. There's more there in central Texas. And then as we go to the midday hours, that will move into southern Oklahoma. And by afternoon, of course, moving into the southern half of Oklahoma. Look at that heavy freezing rain down there. And yes, you just still can't see the model still tinkering with the idea of some sleet mixed in here across Oklahoma, whereas it is all freezing rain down there in North Texas and western parts of central and North Texas. Okay, so there's Wednesday evening, still going. All right, there's a little after midnight, still going. I will show you this, though. This is Dallas County. So you see how the model is trying to take that data we looked at and warm it up to where this is just rain. It's a cold rain, 34 degrees rain, but it's not freezing, whereas the red stuff still is freezing. Again, that continues in Arkansas, and that is for overnight, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So here's the deal. Here's the change for Thursday. So we go to the morning hours, which is where this panel is here. By the way, you can see how southern Arkansas, because of the rebound in temperatures, has gotten much better. So you have a shorter window for ice accumulations as a result. So that's why I still think central Arkansas is the best shot at seeing the most amounts of significant accumulations because of moderating temperatures. But anyway, so back out here, see what happens in this little batch. You still have a little bit of light freezing rain, freezing drizzle, I guess probably a little bit of sleet, and yes, some snow. So a little wintry mix here for northwestern Texas with Thursday morning into southwestern Oklahoma. So originally I thought by Thursday morning we would all be above freezing and this would be fine. It may hang on there just for a few more hours, which really hoses my forecast earlier, for telling everybody for travel that it should be okay at that point. So this is what's throwing the fly in the ointments that's going to cause you to wait a few more hours. So, by afternoon versus by morning, by late morning, I think is what I originally thought. Okay, but you do see the blue for the snow here in northwestern Texas and still that stuff going on in southern Oklahoma there for a little bit. But see, you can see in the afternoon, it keeps diminishing as the models erode what's left of the cold air. And then it's just all cold rain as it moves on out of the entire state. And we are finally done with this stupid storm system for 3 days, man. All right, here's a close-up view Let's get you into Oklahoma here. So there's across the Red River for the lunch hour, and then by, let's see, I'm going to stop you here at about 6 o'clock in the morning. So just to let you know that this model still has it fairly south, from basically a Lawton to McAllister line and points south. I can tell you that other models do have it already in Oklahoma City between 5 and 6 o'clock, between rush hour. So obviously Dallas is going to have it during their rush hour. We might have a little taste of that, the very light stuff, during hours. And keep in mind, any light stuff that we get will freeze on the roads instantly, and it will cause a problem. So if you are driving around Wednesday afternoon, late afternoon, we're talking late day, after 4, 5 o'clock, from central to southern Oklahoma, if you have precipitation following, you're in trouble. I'm just going to leave it at that. You can see how things are kind of staying mostly quiet north. Here's 7, 8 o'clock. Most of it still stays along and south of I-40. So that's kind of the dividing line where you're going to have your substantial, significant precipitation totals. Here's a look at the activity continues to move into the southwestern part of the state by 9 o'clock Thursday morning. It's something that does make its way here into central Oklahoma around lunchtime, and the models are having a tough time as to whether or not it's still freezing rain or at this point it's just very cold rain. I'm going to lean more toward the cold rain. If you look here at the model forecast sounding it is plotted, the reason why, there's our dew point, is still 23. So the wet bulb should keep it back below freezing. And that's the frustrating part. But the forecast sounding says rain. It doesn't say freezing rain, it doesn't say sleet, it says rain, with a temperature of 33 over 23. But when you wet bulb, those two have to come down to meet, and that would meet below freezing. So, I got to caution you, Thursday afternoon is better. If you're going to be doing some traveling here across southern Oklahoma, just to play it safe, all right? You better play it safe than, whatever. So that's it, and then we're done with that deal. Okay, so how about precipitation totals? Let's take a look at that. We'll see what the latest data has. The America model just came out. I haven't used it at all for this entire forecast. It's horrid. And any forecaster that leaned on it for the last week has busted horribly because that hardly even showed a storm to begin with at all. The HER, our short-term model that did pretty good here for the last couple of days with the shallow Arctic air, is still going for significant ice totals in this area, starting again overnight through early Thursday morning, even here for central Arkansas, anywhere from 3/10 to as much as half an inch in some of these areas. But there are some other indications in some of the other models that we may get more than that. Each one has a slightly different view of that. What I like personally is kind of a blend from the HRR, which I showed you, and the European. Again, the European typically does great in these environments. It was a little slow, but it got there. I like the general outline of where the precipitation is. So this takes it, a little touch over here in Tyler, and then down toward Waco, and back out toward Austin and near San Antonio. So I like the little touch of freezing rain along that boundary. Otherwise, heavier stuff around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, back to Waco, southwest, and then western of the hill country and the rest of western Texas. And then that's stretching up here into southern and southeastern Oklahoma, and then back here into central Arkansas toward Memphis. This has always been my favorite areas. If you've seen my broadcast for the last several days, it was been 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So again, this is the trend of where the heaviest precipitation was, with the outlier being how far west will it go in this area of Texas. It looks like it's going to go pretty far. So that's the way it looks like, and we can do a close-up view of these totals so you can get an idea with respect to your town. So probably about 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation here in Oklahoma City. Tulsa, probably just enough maybe to kind of glaze the road, and that's it, just a few hundredths. As it looks now, unless something changes big time in the data. But again, here's the European data. We've got the higher amounts stretching down here across southeastern Oklahoma, down toward Wichita Falls, Graham. Now, these numbers have come down just a hair. They were consistently up around 1/2 inch or a little more. So in the latest data this evening, things have kind of calmed down just a bit. I can compare that, for example, with the high-resolution model as well. It is still keeping, though, some of these stretched areas. There's 0.6 of an inch of ice. Again, that's crippling. That's a devastating ice storm. Anytime you're going to get 1/2 inch of frozen water, accumulate on surfaces, causes the power and the travel issues. But that's highlighted here across, again, that I-40 corridor points to the south in both models. So I like both for that reason. If we go down south a bit, and I'll also go east, so hang in there for me for you guys in Arkansas. Dallas-Fort Worth, again, here's the HER. Again, there's spots here. West side, there's Fort Worth. I mean, it's got 3/4 of an inch of ice. And you've heard me mention 3/4 for a couple of days is on the table. It still is on the table in parts out here to the west. There's Abilene looking not so good either. Again, with the European model, same kind of idea. It's got stuff on the table around at least 1/2 inch. So there's no way you're getting out of it. You guys down in Dallas-Fort Worth, you're going to get the ice storm. You're going to have to deal with power outages, travel issues. It'll be a nightmare for you guys. All right, now let's go over to Arkansas. And covers a little bit of let's go to Memphis as well. So on the European, again, it kind of favored that southern end of Little Rock for about 1/2 inch to around 6/10. And then as we go into, and I'll show you what the Weather Service ended up putting out for their forecast for those areas. But yeah, there's a 1/2 inch there in the HRR. But it shifted a little bit more than north. Again, I kind of like the blend of the models. I do kind of like some of this shift to the north just because I still think we're going to get some eroding down here in the south end too soon before the event finishes. But regardless, that's trouble for Arkansas. Timing, like we mentioned, I did like this. The arrival of timing, the Weather Service put this together from Norman. So it's that 3 to 7 window here from I-40 and down about a county. From start to finish, right? You guys up there in northern Oklahoma, it'll be after 7 for sure. And again, don't expect a whole lot in that region of purple. And then down in south, of course, is the soonest area from around lunchtime. So that was a pretty good map. I really liked what they did there. As far as sleet accumulation goes, they're still going with sleet mixed in at the beginning of this event before it should go to freezing rain. So they do have anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch of sleet in this area. Now remember, sleet causes travel issues, but it does not cause power issues. Now we go to ice accumulation. That's a different story. Again, they're going from 1/4 to 1/2 inch all around the Ardmore area, Durant, just south of Ada, then eastward from there, and then back down to Wichita Falls. Dallas, you guys also, is probably going to be a full 1/2 inch or more. The Weather Service did not make a map for you, but that's what the data is showing. If you do look at the ice accumulation for the moderate impacts, it's still showing in the same areas it has been showing. They haven't put this in the major or extreme yet. I guess they won't. This is an experimental graphic, so it's not really technically active anyway. But it's just something new that they've been experimenting with on how to get the message across. If we look at temperatures over the coming days, we are going to start to warm things up for Thursday and Friday. The weekend looks great, Sunday and Monday. And I'll just go ahead and leave these temperatures and extend it as is. I haven't looked at anything detailed to come in here and tell you why they should change, because I just didn't have time to look at extended outlook. For Dallas, we tried to look at this earlier today, and this thing kind of barfed on me. I downloaded the data, but I haven't looked at it, so I'm just curious. We're going to look at it on the fly for timelines and transition. All right, so the HER model down there in Dallas, for what it's worth, has a 1/2 inch of freezing rain for you, ending about an hour after midnight. All right, then it transfers over to just rain with another 1/2 inch of just regular rain. Again, that's great news, but that also means for all of Wednesday, into Wednesday night through midnight, so that's from this point forward, I mean, that's a good time to be under the gun for more accumulating freezing rain. If we do look at the NAM, oh good, it didn't crash on me this time. It's only got 2/10 on this high-res version. I got to caution you on the NAM, even the HER, they do have these periodic areas where they just have spots that they just don't produce preset because they're trying to get too specific, and one grid point might have a deluge and the next point dry. In reality, neither one of those happens. It's kind of a mixture of the two. So you have to take sometimes the data with a grain of salt down there when you do this analysis. All right, so that's how I'm going to leave that for Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Just curious to see what it does for us. Again, I haven't looked at any of this data. The HER is mostly dry and not a big deal at all. And let's see, same thing for Tulsa. So Tulsa, I mean, you may be really done with anything substantial from this point forward. But remember, any little bit of drizzle, any tiny little bit of freezing rain, it's all it's going to take in this environment to cause travel issues. Just so you won't have to deal with anything with respect to power. Let's see here. 2/10. Oh, that's, it was the NAM. Let's go Oak City. Yeah, so the NAM is really trying to dry things out here in Oklahoma. We have a lot of moisture, upper level, mid levels. Doesn't have much lift down here at the lower levels, and so it's not very excited about that wave of precip that comes in from Texas. It's like it drops its load just south of I-40 And as it gets to this point in the graphic, it runs out of steam. So that's what that data suggests, which we did see a pretty hard line in the sand on that data of I-40 corridor. So I want to look at that data just to make sure that the trend hasn't changed any. That was the latest that came in. All right, so now it's time to get to some of your questions. And if you did ask me anything, I need you to... Oh, hold on. I was going to show you the snow totals. I knew there was something I was missing in all my maps, and there's so much to cover, right? Sheesh. It's like there's way too much data. All right, let's go to snowfall map here. Okay, so let's see what this does for us. So the NAM had some measurable snow up to around 2 inches out here in far southwest Oklahoma, northwest Texas. I believe the HRRR was much more favorable for a more eastward progression of that activity. Yeah, there we go. So that even has some here at least on the west side of Dallas and Fort Worth. That's 3, 2, 3, and then it gets stupid inches out here, 3 or 4. It might be some sleet contamination. I'm not sure how the model's going to handle that, but needless to say, it does have plenty of measurable snow between Graham, Wichita Falls, up toward Lawton, and then back out southwest. So just a heads up for the event on Thursday. As that upper system moves through, we might actually have some measurable snow going across the Red River. And that may continue a few counties east toward I-35. Just heads up on that. I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking for snowfall forecast stuff because I'm more focused on the freezing rain and the life impacts of that one. Okay, so by the way, thanks again on Facebook for you guys for sending me the stars tonight. As always, appreciate you guys supporting me for what I do. So I see you, Ron, with the goat. Goat, send them. LaDonna's in the house. Appreciate you with sending me some stars tonight. There is no reason to be late to the party, ladies and gentlemen. If you're typing LTTP in the comments, I'm just going to shake my head. Let's see. Who else? Kathy, you sent me some stars. You're on a 2-week streak. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go here. I see you, Cody. Thanks, sir. We're going to go here to the bottom. Remember, if you had any questions for me, Robert, I see you. David, I see you. Let's go ahead and send them now. So Edmond is in the clear for tomorrow's event. Karen wants to know. So the deal is yes and no. Again, the significant precipitation is going to be south of I-40, all right, along and south of I-40. So that's on the south end of the Oklahoma City Metro. Now, does that mean we could be completely dry in Edmond? And even though it's only 20 miles north of that boundary, it sure does. But it could also mean we get just barely glaze, and that's all it takes for road conditions, right? So that's the take home. You can't get that specific, that fine of a line. If we could, I would. But I gave you the best the science will allow. Now, that said, the probability of having situations where you have to deal with power outages goes up as you travel southward from I-40 into the Red River. Higher, obviously, in the Red River. Lower, you have step it every 50 miles till you get to, say, Norman. Amounts. Like I showed you in the Weather Service graphic. If you can get 1/4 of an inch of freezing rain, you can get some power outages in that situation. Which, by the way, I did show this earlier, but anybody who's leaving early, by the way, is missing out. Maybe you're missing out on these little fun tips. How do you measure ice, for example? This is how you do it, and I showed this the other night. But, ooh, get that back over here. Where do you think you're going? There we go. Let's see. There you go. How you measure ice. So this is the branch. Right here, little stick. You're going to have lighter ice total on the top than you are on the bottom because it's going to sag, right? It's going to kind of melt and then refreeze on the bottom of it. So you're going to measure, like the ruler does, this part and this part. So you're going to add them together. So in this oversimplified example, to make it easy, it's 3/4 on the bottom, 1/4 inch on the top. So now you get an inch total. And then you're going to divide by 2, and now you have your total ice accumulation of 1/2 inch. So once you go from 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice accumulations. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it is a whole lot, and it is enough to cause a lot of power problems. Once you get to 1/2 inch especially and bigger, you got widespread. It's in a whole nother level of hurt and pain. So anyone who's going to see 1/2 inch of ice tomorrow, which is a lot of areas in North Texas, Western and Central Texas, and then Southern Oklahoma on the Red River, like Ardmore area, that is where you guys are going to have a lot of power outages to deal with, and some of that does trickle east, southeast, into southeast Oklahoma, into Arkansas. So those will be your hardest hit areas for power outages because of the ice accumulation getting close to around a ½ inch in diameter. So that was a good question for Alicia that was kind of wondering about that from Norman. So Jared says models backing off slightly for DFW. Well, a little, but remember we told you about the timing. It's because they're trying to find out when to erode the Arctic air mass on the fringe, on the eastern side of it, because that will happen. The precipitation, believe it or not, will warm it up to a degree. Remember that warm layer? Let's go back to this image, and this so you can visualize this. Let's go this one. Okay, so remember this thickness of this warm layer. That means that it's warm. I mean, theoretically, this is relatively speaking, because these are super cool droplets. But what happens is it is warm relative to the atmosphere below it. So in other words, there's some heat here, and there's going to be some latent heat release. There's going to be all kinds of things that happen in physics where this is actually going to help to warm this column a little bit with time. And where this column is the thinnest, in other words, where let's say this column is only this tall, say, versus this tall. If it's only this tall, it gets eroded really easy. And when we're talking about a front, you're talking about a slope. So let's do this. Let's minimize that and that. All right, so let's draw a front here. All right, so first off, this is the ground. Okay, the Earth is not flat, by the way. It's just my short version of it. Anyway, so here is, let's just say this is a cold front, all right? Now, why am I drawing the front like this? Because that's how the fronts lie. At the very edge, they are very shallow, okay? But as you go deeper into the cold air, it gets very thick, where you get to the center of the high. So when the rain falls into this, on top of this boundary, right, it is going to have ability to erode this area first before it starts to work on the rest of the cold air mass. So it takes time. So everybody's susceptible who is barely at the freezing point. In other words, where that front has barely made it. So we go back to this map here. All right, so I'll just leave it here at the initialization point. So that means, again, this is your leading edge of that example I just showed you vertically. So what happens is this area gets eroded very quickly. And that's why, like I said, southern Arkansas may get saved from what really could have happened. And it chips away little by little. And then it gets into the deeper area. And right now, the model said the deeper area right over Dallas-Fort Worth, whereas Rockwall and Dallas start to warm at 33, 34, but Tarrant County stays at 32. That's just an example. But that's how that works, if that made any sense to you. So. All right, that's good. That was a good point to bring up. Okay, let's see. Trevor wants to go to Fort Worth. I don't know why. Ain't nothing out there, man. Stick in Dallas. That's where all the party is. I don't know where you are. I have no idea why you'd want to go there. It's an ice storm, but have at it. When will the flights be able to leave out of DFW? Ooh. Yeah, that's a problem. Thursday, obviously, for sure. They obviously try to get things going. They de-ice planes, and I'm not in charge of that part of the aviation side. So it's like with anything, weather delay, cancellations, rebooking, it happens. It's just the way it is. Because let's just say they got 10 planes to go in an afternoon. I'm just making up a number. And because of it, how long it takes to de-ice a plane and the runways and everything, they can get one out of those 10. Well, if you happen to be that lucky person on that one, good for you. The rest of you, 9 of you, you got canceled. So that's an oversimplification, but that's how that works. Okay, Shelly, 50 stars. Thank you, Shelly. Let's see. Do you do weather presentations for elementary school students? Nikki. So I have a normal day job. I work for the federal government. Unfortunately, there are rules, and I cannot do anything during work hours. So that's why you guys never see me during the business hours of, 9 to 5, unless it's during my lunch break, and that's the only time I can do it. So unfortunately, I can't do it, and what I do for you here does not pay the bills. If this were to somehow become my full-time job, then yeah, I could do that all the time. So at times I have done like canned weather presentations like for this kind of stuff, and I've done like a live event where I've done like a weather presentation, so almost kind of like a Zoom deal. But that's usually in the evening, so it's not, again, during those business hours kind of a deal. So I'm kind of limited on what I can do. Let's see. Shelly, Ada has lineman crews setting up on standby as well this evening. Good. All right. So little insider info. I do talk with an energy company that distributes their line guys to areas of the country where they're going to be needed. So just so you guys know, 6 days ago, I told those guys to be in place. Now, if you had listened to all the other weather guys, they would not have done that. And they wouldn't be in place in Ardmore and in Dallas and in Little Rock and maybe down toward Waco and maybe toward Abilene, like I had suggested my crew to be. So that's kind of some of the backstory on that. So when the weather community itself screws up, it just doesn't just affect, you guys as far as your daily commute and whether or not you'll have power. It can affect the guys that restore power to you because they weren't ready. They didn't get their crews in place to get the bids, to get the jobs. So anyway, so that's how that works, by the way, on the back end. So all 598 of you that are still hanging with me on Facebook, you now know some of the secrets that the other 1,000 plus don't know because they left. But that's okay. It is, 10:23? You always learn something new here. I spill the beans on everything. You want brutal honesty? You get it. Let's see. Okay, let me go to YouTube real quick. I was just perusing through all the Facebook comments and stuff, and so obviously thank you guys for doing all that. I have to start from the bottom again. So Emmanuel from Tulsa, yeah, he's all up in it because he's like, am I going to get anything? And I'm like, sorry, buddy. Doesn't like a whole lot going on at Tulsa this time around. A light glazing is all I can promise you. If you get a little bit more and you want more, then get excited. But that's all I can promise you. You're just too far north. Oh, Robert, you're here. You did go to Denton on Sunday. Okay. You took me. Man, I told you not to go. Although I don't think you had a choice. He said, went to Denton on Sunday. Watched you bring me up last night. It took me 5 hours to go from Denton to Gainesville. Oh my gosh. I made it home at 1 o'clock today. Holy man, dude. He goes, my employer did take me seriously and said he should have listened to me and will next time. Man, I'm glad you made it. I was a little worried about you, dude. You were on here begging me. I was like, dude, don't go. So, hey, by the way, you got an AT's Top Fan badge on YouTube. I didn't even know that was a thing. I swear, YouTube's trying to be like Facebook, and Facebook is trying to be like YouTube. Pretty sure you guys won't even know the difference between the platforms anymore. By the way, if you're still watching this on YouTube, Facebook, do me a favor, real quick, hit the like button or hit the love button, anything. Just hit some buttons so that the algorithms know that they know that you want the content, that it shows up, it gets put back in the feeds. For YouTube, it gets put back in the mix. Otherwise, they bury you down the bottom and nobody ever sees anything. So do me a favor, do me a solid. It's not too much to ask. Just hit the old button. And you guys on YouTube sometimes are a little lazy in that department. That's right, I called you out. So just hit the button. That's all. And then we should be good because it's supposed to work that way, at least as far as I know, as a content creator. At least that's what I read in my emails. Let's see. So yeah, Mary says roads are slick out there. Yeah, they are. They're going to be. Now, I will say this afternoon, I had to go around this morning to doctor's appointment for Jody, and which everything went good, by the way, for those that were asking, so thank you for that. But the roads really improved. I was impressed from morning to afternoon. That was really good to see, so that's helpful. Of course, the problem with that is then you get overconfident, right? And you're bebopping around thinking everything's great, and then you hit a patch of black ice, and you lose control. So it's kind of catch-22. Oh, I saw some nasty accidents and stuff going on in Dallas. I saw it going on in Memphis, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I mean, it's been 2 days of some rough traction out there for the auto hockey stuff. And then you're going to get a lot worse, like I said, for tomorrow to tomorrow night. So if you can, stay off the roads during that period. If you are on the roads, make sure you have water, a little food, because it may take a while for crews to get to you. And I mentioned this earlier, if you're in a situation where all of a sudden everybody's just piling into one another, do not get out of your vehicle under any circumstances. Unless, I guess, it's on fire. That's the only time. Because otherwise, you now no longer have 2,000 pounds of metal to protect you. You are going to be flattened like a pancake. So if you got a death wish, get out of your car and walk around a solid sheet of ice when cars are flying at you at 60 miles an hour, and you'll meet your maker pretty quick in that environment. So stay in the car until everything gets finished and they're all finished piling into one another. Then you can get out and assess the situation. Or if you're really early and there's a huge hill and there's no chance anybody's making it up the hill and you can run fast, I guess you can go for it that way. But those are really the only reasons. Maybe there's a big concrete wall or something, 6-foot wall you can hop over. But I'm telling you, those kind of conditions probably aren't going to be there when you see that. So just be careful. Anyway, so back, let me see. Let's do this real quick. And then I think it's about time to wrap this up. It is almost 10:30. Ardmore shows sleet and freezing rain. Yes, James. I still think we're going to get a lot more freezing rain for Oklahoma than we are going to get sleet this time around. Just the warming has thickened up a little bit. Yeah, so, okay, this is a good question, and I did not show this. Amanda said, and let me go back to the maps here. I think I just forgot to pull this up is what happened. Trust me, I had all good intentions. So let's go back here to south. So let's go to Weather Service out here in North Texas. All right, now remember, I took a lot of heat for calling for a catastrophic ice storm. And from my peers on Facebook, on Twitter, on the news, because they watch, they pay attention, and I'm really good at what I do. But when you go out on a limb 6 days away, boy, you should have heard them just cackling. And here we are, the moment of truth, the final hour, and what do you have? You have an ice storm warning. Ice storm warnings for crippling levels of ice that causes catastrophic situation to unfold. So there you go. All right, so the question was, from Amanda, the Weather Service issued an ice storm warning for the west of DFW and South Red River, wondering why we weren't included in that warning. Or is an ice storm warning any different than a winter storm warning? So if you notice, she's talking about this area right here. So they split Fort Worth and Dallas in half. Now, if you remember in my broadcast, I told you how the models were trying to do this right here, right? They were trying to warm this area. After a little bit of freezing rain, they're trying to get it back above freezing by the time you head into Wednesday evening. So that is why they chose to keep this area out of the ice storm warning. And I don't have a problem with that necessarily. The issue here, probably because of the metropolitan area and the fact that you've got millions of people here, I probably would have just left Dallas in there. Maybe Rockwall you could leave out. Now, I don't know if that lessens the take-home message, I'm not sure about that, but, they got their reasons. But the point is, you can see how far west that ice storm goes all the way to Abilene, which, again, was my hard-hit area. Now, let's take a look at the wording. So, on this ice storm warning for Dallas-Fort Worth, Fort Worth and westward, light freezing rain and sleet tonight, transition all freezing rain on Wednesday, total ice accumulations, and they're going to go for a half inch total. So they're not going to go for the 6/10 or the 3/4, like some of the model data suggests. They're going to be conservative. They're going to go a half inch. I can't argue with that. That's fine. That's what you can pick, and you can say half inch, and there can be spots in there that still gets at 3/4 of an inch. I don't know if you can notice that much difference between a half inch and 3/4 once the damage is done. But there's an example of the wording on that. Now let's go to Dallas. Let's go to winter storm warning, and you'll see what the wording is in that one. Okay. Same idea, mixed precipitation, mainly in the form of freezing rain, even though there might be a little bit of sleet mixed in there. Bursts of sleet may get a half inch in some spots, but they don't mention anything about the ice accumulations. Oh, that was terrible. That's I'm going to reserve saying anything. I'm just going to bite my tongue and move on. So anyway, they should have had some ice accumulations in that winter storm warning, but they have a breakdown on what each of those categories are supposed to mean. And in theory, it's a step up. So in other words, a winter storm warning is a bad storm. It usually means a mixed bag of precipitation, enough significant amounts to cause problems. So it usually includes snow or freezing rain or sleet, kind of a deal. But when it's mostly ice, in the form of freezing rain, they bump it up to an ice storm warning because it stands out on its own. It's more devastating. It's more crippling for power infrastructure, all that. So that's the difference between the two. We didn't quite see that in the wording, but that was what we were going for. Anyways, that was a good question. Doris is asking Jody, how are you tonight, Jody? All right. Yeah, Jared. So big difference between east to west from the Metroplex down there. All right. You're welcome, Madonna. Thank you, David. Appreciate the stars. Yeah, I know, Jennifer. I saw the sun peeking out, too. Janet, it is a 30-minute drive between Denton and Gainesville. Can you imagine that? 5 hours? I laugh, but I also cry on the inside because I couldn't do that. Eleanor, it's true, man. The brutal honesty, someone does pay in that situation. Obviously, there's no laughing matter when you're dealing without power and you have a loss of life. But in the general scheme of things, you can't sit there and look at that outcome and think that somebody's not going to, bite it on this when it comes to all those different categories. It's too big of a storm system. So Minnie's comment to somebody saying, yeah, most of it's on the south of I-40 as far as anything heavy and significant. We will still get enough light stuff here across the north sides of the metro, I still think, to at least cause some slippery road problems. We could come in tomorrow, and I got to caution you, we could still come in tomorrow, and the models could easily take that big, thick band of precipitation. Again, it's drew a hard line in the sand. It's like, nope, it's not going over 40. And it could easily go, oh, just kidding, and shove it one more county north of 40. It can easily happen. It's just toying between the amount of dry air that's in place, how much that precipitation has to overcome before it evaporates, and some other things, and the position of the upper low. The upper level low that comes out of southern Cal and Baja, if that, for whatever reason, drifts 50 miles more north or 100 miles more north, and the models didn't see that coming, guess what happens to all that winter precipitation? It comes more north, and now you're back in the full-fledged for Oklahoma City. You could be back in a quarter-inch ice territory, just like that. Tulsa could be back in at least the glazing category of road problems. So I have to caution you when you're looking at these model data like we did tonight, last couple of days, it's a scary pattern overall, and we're trying to get very specific. We're trying to draw literal lines in the sand, and we're saying it's not going to cross this line. And I'm telling you, that's dangerous on this type of situation. I give you everything that there is. I give you the best forecast given from the data, and I tell you what to watch for. The biases, kind of like this now, what to look for, what to watch for. In other words, what can go wrong, and that's one of them. So let's do this, and then I'm going to let you go. And let me see if this updated enough. They got it. Yeah, I think they did. No, they didn't. What is wrong with these guys? Ugh. I know what I'll do. I know exactly what I'll do. Hold that thought. Let's do this one. Okay, there we go. All right, just to give you an idea of how big this swath of winter weather is, and it stretches from far western Texas with the purple, which is ice storm warning. That is a huge ice storm warning, and this wasn't like this 24 hours ago. The only place that had an ice storm warning early for this event, the only forecasters that actually recognized this entire pattern and knew better, was these guys right here. And actually extended it here as well. These guys in Arkansas knew what was up. They said, no, this is classic ice storm. We're in trouble. We're flipping out the switch. We're sounding the alarms. Kudos to the guys in Little Rock. They did a great job. The rest of them, they need work to do. But they did catch up, so at least now everybody knows. So there's a lot more to come out here in western Texas. And can this be expanded by a couple of counties? In other words, could the purple fill in to here, for example, and maybe one county here? You bet. It could. It just depends on trends. But this is a good stab at it. And then the winter weather advisory, which is in the purple, which means at least some light winter precipitation. In other words, enough to cause a nuisance or some problems on roadways, etc. That thing extends from Tennessee and Kentucky back up north and east from there, almost to the New England area. So that's a pretty good stretch for inclement weather. So it's one big, long system. That's because it was a 3-day system, and it's taking its sweet time to move through. And we had Arctic air that moved in prior, and that sets the stage. So there you go. All right, so that was something else that I forgot who said what, but that jogged my memory. Minnie said, I was able to warn friends and family in DFW. They had no clue. We're super thankful. I don't get it, man. I really don't get it. It's not like they don't have any meteorologists down there. I just don't understand. But anyway, here's the deal. I told you guys too this at lunch today. Or was it last night? I can't remember. I think it was lunchtime. But just a little heads up. And this, obviously, it didn't matter in this environment, right? But in theory, knock on wood, most times, you want to make sure you're at least following a degreed meteorologist. All right, that's the step one. Now, I can tell you each degreed meteorologist will have a different education, obviously, and a different skill set. In other words, no two are alike. Secondly, one may specialize in one aspect but do horrible in another. All right. So, for example, and I use myself as an example. Like two things. I'm a forecaster and a radar meteorologist. So those are my expertise levels. Now, if you were to ask me a lot about particulate matter and chemistry for atmospheric concentrations of different molecules, I'm not your guy. I didn't care to learn about it in college, and so I spent very little time on it, and I didn't spend any after time on it either. Yeah, I know there's a lot of that up there, but I wouldn't be the guy you'd call in a court of law. And I admit that. However, there's a lot of meteorologists out there that don't admit that they don't know what they're talking about over certain things, and they can't forecast, say, their way out of a paper bag. And then you guys that can't even read a radar. They got no clue what a tornado looks like, but they'll pretend. So you do have that, unfortunately. But outside of that complicated deal, 'cause it's like going to a doctor, right? You go to your general practitioner and you say, hey, I got this. You know what he does, or she? Well, let me send you to an expert over here. Let me send you this person. Let me send you that person. Why? Because they can't know everything about everything. Same thing for meteorology. Same idea. So that way you can relate it. Now, that's one aspect. So at least get to the meteorologist side that you follow, and then from there, you're just going to have to weed them out as to who you like better, who seems to do a better job, who seems to have a better education level. And that's difficult, but that's on you. Outside of that, what you're going to see a lot on the internet world now is con artists. Con artists will use big, bold colors and signs and fonts and scream major storm, crippling whatever, and they'll put big cartoonish stuff on the map. All that is this. Those are all cons. Those guys aren't even meteorologists. So just know that, which means they don't have anything upstairs to even put together a forecast. What they're going to do is they're just going to look at a model and just call it whatever the model says and call it good. And they'll pat the pick one because they don't know which one to use. Secondly, what they'll do sometimes is watch somebody like me, and they'll pick up on the terminology or what I say, and they'll go and replicate it, and they'll say the same thing. And then all of a sudden you think they're intelligent. So just let you know that happens a lot, and it's out there in this world of internet cyberspace. So, and that's on all the platforms. So, and I know there is no way you will ever be able to tell who's who, and that's frustrating. And I gave the example when I was in TV. It was the same thing. We had to work with a lot of guys in the television world that weren't meteorologists. They were what we call ripping readers. Means they had no clue. They would rip off the National Weather Service forecast and just read it to you on the air and act like they came up with it. Yeah. Now, to me, I have ethics and morals, very strong on both ends. And so, boy, did that get under my skin as a fresh meteorologist in the business, competing, for those spots, right, those jobs. So in my mind, all these other people were frauds, cons. They weren't educated. They were taking my, potential future position, So it was a competition thing. And it took me a few years to settle down and to let that go and just to focus on me and just do me, not worry about anybody else. That was a hard thing to do, though, just so you know. It'd be like the one doctor in the room going to surgery, and you got 10 other guys with scalpels, and he's looking around going, oh, hell no. You guys aren't operating. A, you don't have a license. B, you didn't even go to med school. But the patients in there like, oh, I just saw him on the internet. He looked good. So that guy, same process. He's going, so you have to just let it go and just him do him. So I do me. And that was in TV. So I got through that, and that was 12 years in that business. I did on the internet. I was the first meteorologist to do all this kind of stuff online and provide a weather app and everything else. So I was a pioneer in this industry before it became the in thing to do. Now that it's the in thing to do, there's are copycats everywhere. A lot of these guys are probably storm chasers. By the way, storm chasers, they do not know. Some of them have a pretty good idea of storm chasing, but they don't know anything else about forecasting stuff and radar meteorology, everything else you have to go through school for. Some are pretty good, but again, they're not credentialed. So there's a lot of that going on. And then you have some just love the weather, very passionate about the weather. And I get it, but they never come out and tell you, by the way, some of the stuff I just make up, or I just take this model verbatim and I just regurgitate and I pick the worst one, and then I get you all hyped up and put a bunch of scary graphics on the screen, and then I get I get a bunch of clicks and for a bait, clickbait, and I make money off of this. So they're not going to come out and tell you that, and they won't even come out and tell you they don't even have a degree. It's all hidden. So in their description of who they are, their about me section, if it doesn't say, meteorology degree from an accredited university from XYZ. So mine's right there on all my bios. I mean, you can't miss it. But anyway, so that's kind of in the fraud con game where they recognize that, hey, it's like that car wreck. You have to stop, slow down, and look, right? Same thing for weather. The crazier it is, the more scary it is, the more whatever it is, you get a lot of traffic. And you don't have any clue who's providing that source, and they're tapping into that, and they're making a ton of money off of it. There's a popular guy on YouTube that's doing it, and there's a popular guy in Dallas that's doing it. I'm not gonna say any names because they know who they are, and trust me, they're gonna sleep just fine, because people without ethics and morals always sleep just fine because they don't have a compass. And if you don't have a compass, whatever you're doing is right. I look at that stuff and go, I couldn't do that. I don't want to do that. So that's why I don't play that game. But that's back to my circling back around is because of all the stuff that's out there, I can't even think about it because it irritates me. I'm back to the doctor with all the other non-doctors with scalpels. So I just got to do this and just go, do me, do me, do me. Anyway, so that's a little info behind the scenes on this whole wild world of weather out there that you're going to find on the social media sphere. So there you go. Yeah, Jared. I see what you did. And what's funny is when I was in television for so long, and I left and retired, and then I started my own thing online, so on the internet, built the TV studio, did all this stuff. No one's ever done that. And what happened was I upset all my colleagues in the industry that started to degrade me by calling me the internet meteorologist, like a slang term. Like, oh, don't listen to him. He's an internet meteorologist. This is back in 2014. How short-sighted and stupid was that, right? Because now they're all doing it. But, at the time, I just laughed it off and took it as, that's right, I'm the internet meteorologist. So I took it and ran with it. But that just kind of goes to show you just some backstory, man, what goes on behind the scenes. There's drama in everything. There's even drama in weather. So much drama. I ain't got time for that. Anyway. Amanda, are you giving weather or politics? All right, Amanda. I want your definition of politics. I'll wait. You tell me what your definition of politics is, because I have a feeling you don't have a Webster's dictionary and you don't even know what politics mean, but you go ahead. I'll sit back. Anyway, for the rest of you, that was a little insight on what goes on in the industry for weather and money making and all that kind of stuff, and how things are done and produced and some of the drama behind it. But that's it for me. I got to get out of here because it is time for me to go to bed. Somebody's got to work tomorrow. You guys be safe. I will do another live tomorrow around lunchtime again, probably 11:45-ish. And then we'll do another one tomorrow evening right around 9:30. As always, appreciate you guys stopping, liking, sharing this post, all my other posts, my blog, my website, aarontuttle.com, getting my free weather app, AT's Weather to Go. Spread the word down there in North Texas and Arkansas, everywhere you go. That stuff actually works all across the country, so you can take my weather app with you. Even international, there's a little bit of truth or a little bit of coverage even in that situation. But that's about it. All right, listen, I got to get. You guys been great. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody. Oh, check YouTube? Hold on. The wife just said check YouTube. Hold on. What am I checking? Oh, informal greeting. Yeah, there you are. Hey, thank you for the super chat. Very good. Yeah, Jody just yelled out at me. So thanks. I haven't seen you on here in a while, so thanks for stopping by. All right, guys, thanks again. Appreciate you tonight, and we will do it again tomorrow. All right, see you later.